Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Quixotic topic. As always, I'm your host, and today I'm joined by
Isaiah Brock,
Isaiah Brock, and Isaiah has a podcast of his own, separate from the Quixotic topic, which is called
best of both worlds, best of BOF worlds.
Word Word, and I believe it's on all platforms, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right,
Well,
and so,
all podcast platforms, not on YouTube.
okay, everything except for YouTube.
Yeah.
And so today we are going to be kind of picking the brain of the genius behind the best of both worlds and kind of asking what was it like to kind of get it started. I believe you are 70 episodes strong.
Yeah, 76.
Right, right, right. And so before we get into that, one thing I wanted to ask is explain to your fans like what the best of both worlds is really about. Like what is its kind of core ethos?
Right, right. So, um, the core purpose of best of both worlds is really to allow others to share their stories with young people in the world and encourage them to do great things. And it's really to jumpstart leadership in a sense, where a lot of people say that wisdom is just off of your own experiences, but in my opinion, I think wisdom comes from not only your experiences but the experiences of others. If I see someone else burn their hand touching the stove, I'm not going to touch that stove to see if it's really burning them. um
Exactly. Makes sense.
so it's really just that, just sharing information. I've been blessed to be surrounded by prominent figures in my community from Rochester, New York, and I've been blessed to be around um, very successful Black individuals, and everyone isn't privy to that. So for me, it's I want to share that to as many people as possible.
Right, right. And so, like, if I'm getting this right, kind of the main point of the podcast is to get like kind of a catalog of wisdom for people who are, I guess, like your audience is like people who are inspired or like creatives, maybe.
Yes, definitely. I have a pretty mixed audience, um, but yeah, it's really just to motivate, give wisdom, and also to be interactive in a sense where I don't keep it. Every episode isn't specifically one topic. You know what I mean?
Right.
If it's a new guest, I'll do background information and just let them tell their whole story, because I feel like it's always fun to hear people's story. Everyone has a story, so it's not just like, hey, you're successful at surgery, you're a successful surgeon. What did it take for you to get here to XYZ? What happened? I want to know what happened before that. What happened leading up to it? What motivated you to go down that route? What brought you to school? What people was in your life? Who did you have as mentors? Who did you have as inspiration? And what advice would you give to someone in that same position who may not have as many resources or who may have more? You know what I mean? Just as much as possible.
Yeah, it's definitely it's very like a holistic grasp of like who someone is as a person and kind of like taking their best nuggets of wisdom and like as I said before, of course, like cataloging it.
Right.
And so if you don't mind me asking, when did you, I guess, like, not only when did you start the podcast, but when did you get the idea that, like, this is something that you wanted to do?
Man, I'll be honest with you. I've been thinking about this since like elementary. Since an early age, I've had like a deeper voice. Um, and just people would keep telling me, "Hey, man, you should do radio. You should do this. You should do Broadway. Yada yada yada." Like just telling me like, "Hey, I should do something with my voice." And for me,
Mhm.
I was always interested in music, so I'm not gonna lie, I tried that route, but it ended up not working out. And it was a good thing. At first I was kind of bitter. I'm like, man, I want to get my voice right. I was practicing in the mirror. I was going to the studio often trying to record, and then I was just like, yo, like one thing I've always been and always done. I've always been a leader and I've always led. You see what I'm saying?
Right, right,
Um, since early, and then I'm like, all right, well, I like to talk and I like to listen to people talk. I like to hear people's stories. Um, People like to hear me, so I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna keep that in my mind, and when something comes up, you know what I mean, I'm gonna approach it. And I'm spiritual, so I prayed as well. And I'm like, yo, like, God, like, can you send that message, or can you inform me some way, give me a hint or something that like, what's my purpose? You know what I mean? I wanted to know what my purpose was. Um, and just, one day I just started listening to podcasts, and I
Right,
started
right,
finding podcasts for everything: sports, fitness, comedy, economics, just everything that I was interested in. I found a podcast for everything, and I started to think like, you know what, why can't I do that? You see what I'm
right,
saying? Like everyone's been telling me, oh, your voice this, your voice that, and I have all these people around me, and I've been leading people, but I need help doing this because I can only tell somebody so much. I'm not successful. I'm still growing, but I
right.
have
Of
a
course.
bunch of people around me who are poured into me. So I'm like, I should just put everything together and try to see what I could do with it. And I came up with podcasting, man. It's been a dope journey, man. It's and it's
How
still
long have you,
early. It's still early, but it's fun.
how long have you been going so far?
Oh man, that's I think my first episode was October of 2019. October of
2019.
2019. Yeah.
Word. I
Mm.
think I personally, I think there's a lot of similarities between our stories because I too have been lauded for my deep voice, and and of course, like I always kind of just took that as just like another like bucket compliment that someone will just say when they're trying to compliment you, but they don't really know you like that. And
Right.
so, and so, like, of course, I just took it in stride. But I think maybe it's just like I had heard it one too many times, and I was like, you know what? Let me try this. And so I think podcasting, at least as it is right now, because we're similar in the fact that like this is very much in our infancy, is quite like the hobby for me right now. I'm kind of just doing it because I like to, because like I do realize that I have a passion for this, and like I enjoy the process that goes into podcasting, whether it is like the conversations, the recording, or of course like editing as well.
Right.
But I think my first episode came out in 2019 as well. I
Mm.
want to say September of 2019, and then I was releasing semi consistently at least once a month. Um, all the way up until, of course, the pandemic happened, and then things kind of started to fall apart.
Mm.
But I want to ask, like, what are so you have about like you said 76 episodes,
Yeah, 76.
76, and so is your schedule like once every week or like bi-weekly?
Right. So my schedule is, I would say it's pretty inconsistent and it's open right now.
Mhm.
Um, what I'm doing is preparing to get back to a set schedule where I do 3 times a week. Um, During the pandemic, like earlier on in the pandemic, I think I had it at three times a week. It was like a Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or one Monday, Wednesday, Saturday type schedule. And I think I'm gonna get back to that. It
Okay.
really was just me. You know what I mean? Like there's no, it was just me. Like I was consistent, and then kind of fell off a little bit. I had some time in between episodes. That's why it's only 76, but I've been around for some time now. Um, but
Yeah, I mean
yeah,
that's perfectly fine. I mean, looking at me, I only have about like 20, I think specific, yeah, like around literally 20 episodes recorded. This will be the 21st. Um and I think like another thing is that I my initial plan was to record these on one day, edit them another day, and have them out the day after. And so like
right.
that would contribute into like a once a week episode schedule of having like just
Mhm.
one um every week. And so you are having three a week. And so how long are your podcasts in terms of like duration?
It spans however my guest allows it. I'll be honest. Uh, I try to shoot for under an hour max, just
Okay.
because I know my listeners. I don't have listeners that'll be around that long unless the conversation calls for that. If it's a conversation that I feel is going to intrigue people to stay, then I'll let it bleed over. But for the most part, I try to stay under an hour. Um,
Okay.
but I mean, it really just goes for the listener. I mean, for the guests. Sometimes I have guests that they kind of struggle with staying on topic. So I ask a question and we'll stay where I have to be, and then we'll veer off, and then come back, and then veer off, and it's just like it's sometimes out of my power. But I try to
Right,
shoot for
right.
about an hour.
Yeah. I think I have definitely stayed quite stringent to the rule of like most of our episodes like need to be in like the 40 to 45 minute ballpark. And
Mm.
then like maybe there's maybe like a 5 minute delta between that 45, but other than that, it's like not too long because
Yeah.
and that's like from just like genuine market research because like the podcasts that like I listen to and stuff that I enjoy are usually like if at max like an hour. Um, I think there's definitely like a place for 2 hour long podcasts, but
Yeah.
it's not necessarily in my ears, and so I don't necessarily want that to be the thing that I give to my audience, which takes me to the subject of audiences. One thing that I have discovered as somewhat of an obstacle really is we're kind of like getting the word out and necessarily like developing recurrent listeners. You know, like most of the times, the people who listen to my podcast is the people I recorded with and like their friends, and then that's it, which is fine. It's like that's like already three more people than I expected, but it's definitely a bit interesting to see how you turn like those numbers into bigger numbers.
Right.
So I wanted to ask you, seeing as that you have like a couple more episodes under your belt, like, what things have you done to get like episodes put to your audience, and kind of like where do you go to meet your audience, to be specific?
Uh, I'll be honest, with time, naturally, just with algorithms, you'll have new listeners from just like random places. You know what I mean? Like you'll get listeners from overseas. That's happened to me. Just I have people from all over that just I don't know how they get it, but they get it. But what I try to do is for the list for the guests that I have, you know, obviously they share it with their peer group, and I normally post uh a screenshot of each episode on a podcast page, or I'll put it on a story of my personal page. And for the most part, it's just word of mouth. You know what I mean? It's just
Right.
being active on the stories, being active on the Instagram, which I need to do better at, but it helps. It goes a long way, especially when you have people who share with their peer group as well. It's like, hey, I listened to this podcast, man, great podcast. When they put the word out, it's great as well. Um, Sharing the link, if you share a link to whatever platform you prefer, share a link is very, very, very helpful. I've noticed an increase in listeners by me doing that. Just once I post a link, it's like I feel like people, in a sense, are lazy. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
It's like
Definitely.
if you don't give it to them on a silver platter, the likelihood of them going out their way to get to it is just it's slim to none. You know what I mean? And it's something I'm used to because I know how the music world works. And it's like if you're an artist from a city or whatever, most of the people that you know personally or people who are in the same city, they won't give it the time of day. But if it's like where they can't deny it, it's like, yo, here's a snippet. If you post a snippet of a song, they're going to listen to it. If it sounds good, they'll go to it. If not, so be it. But if it was someone famous, it's different. So we just have to realize, like, in the position that we're in, we just have to do whatever we can to make it easier for the people that we want to reach.
Okay. Would you say that your endeavors in the music industry definitely kind of bolstered or I guess otherwise augmented your approach to podcasting?
Man, listen, I wouldn't even say I was involved in the music industry. It was, but I would definitely say it helped. You know what I'm saying? I had to get over that hump of being familiar with my voice. I didn't like the sound of my voice at first, but after going back and back and back and playing around, you know, doing things that was uncomfortable, stepping outside of my comfort zone, it definitely helped. And, you know, I would say music, because I'm such a fan of music and the feeling I get from music, music helps me with the podcast in terms of motivation. Well, in this,
Right.
it's the strangest thing. I'll hear a song that I really, really, really like, and instead of being motivated to go in the studio, I'll feel motivated to go record. Um, I don't know where that comes from. I don't know why that is, but that's just, I would say that's, you know, the involvement.
Definitely. I can definitely vouch for that because I'll listen to other podcasters and really just other content creators, and like every now and then I'll come across a video where like they start talking about them creating content and just get like the urge, and it's like I should be doing this. I should be creating
Hmm.
content right now.
Yeah.
And like that's somewhat of a weird feeling because at the same time I don't really think I'd call myself a content creator, you know?
Hmm.
But
Why not?
I guess like there's a lot of disconnect
Hmm.
between like what I think a content creator like is, what I think a content creator should be, and what I think I am. You know, I think that as I said before, I describe myself as coming as this as a hobbyist. I think
Hmm.
honestly just already kind of like putting myself down a little bit compared to someone who's just like here to make content for like the soul for like not even just for monetary gain, but like someone who is, I guess, more passionate to me. But that, of course, may just be attributed to me selling myself short, which is something I should stop doing. But you know, some things are easier said than done.
Right, right. Definitely, definitely. And I mean, it's never too late to take the step in whatever direction you want to go. Um, like I'm really against the whole New Year, New Me thing. Like I feel like if you really want to make a difference, just when you put your mind on it, try to approach it, like try to attack it as fast as possible. Don't even wait to say like, I'm gonna start on the beginning of the week or I'm gonna start in the beginning of the month. Because at the end of the day, that's just procrastination, man. It's a pretty way of doing it. So, I mean? Just whatever you feel like you need to work on, whatever you feel like you need to improve, bro. Just do it, man. That's the space I'm in right now. Just realizing what things I need to change and do better. I'm doing it, man. Just working on it.
Right, right. And so, I want to ask, like, because I, of course, have cooked up my own um, idea of reaching out to guests and getting to record. And by that, I mean, I just ask, like, my friends or people I know if they want to record. But I'm definitely like as time increases and as I continue working this podcast more, the realization that like I'm eventually going to have to start interviewing and like doing podcasts with just complete and total strangers, which is okay.
Yeah.
But like stepping into that field is definitely something that I'm a bit foreign to, and so I was wondering if you might have any pointers to that.
Yeah, man. Listen, man, be comfortable in your skin. Be comfortable in your skin. Be comfortable with what you have going on. Be confident, man. Be confident. Know what it is. You know what I mean? You already have your plan behind you, and you know what it is you want to do. So you just, man, listen, man. Some people may deny it, some people may not, but man, as long as you're confident, I'm telling you, man, 9 to 10 people are just they're gonna gravitate to you. So, with me, um, one thing that I've started doing, because I did one episode like this, but it worked on numerous occasions. So I'm going to start doing like full on episodes. How often are you on Instagram?
Not very, honestly.
Or what social media platform are you on often?
Out of all of them, I think the social media platform I use the most is Discord.
Mhm.
To
Which
be
I'm not.
completely
I'm not familiar with how the app works, so I'll speak from my perspective, and I'll speak on Instagram, right?
okay.
So with Instagram, I'm scrolling, and I see thought-provoking posts, or I'll see posts where it's just like controversy, even if it's nonsense, what I mean? Anything to where it's like, yo,
Voted address.
do you think your fiance should sit in the front seat or your mom? Stuff like that, just random stuff. And it's like,
Right.
it'll have like thousands of comments. And I'm like, all right, so people want to talk about this. So I'll go into the comments, read comments, and I'll see like, oh, you know what? I like what that person said. You see what I'm saying? And it's like, regardless if I know them or not, whatever their background is, I don't really care. It's just, well, I can't say I don't care because I do want to
I mean,
know. You know what I
crazy
mean?
stuff.
I do want to know their story, and it's just like I'm not biased when I'm going to find someone to speak to. That's what I mean. So going into it, I'll see somebody. I'm like, yo, I like their point of view on that. It's different. It may not be what I agree to, but it's different. So
Right.
I'll reach out to them via DM. Hey, have you ever thought of being on a podcast? Are you comfortable with speaking your thoughts? Are you comfortable with being recorded while speaking XYZ? And if so, we move forward. And I had an episode like that with someone I met in LA. Um, and what was the conversation? I think it was a conversation about just toxic masculinity. And I just, I saw a post, I think the Shade Room posted it, and that's usually a platform that posts things that a lot of people comment on. I just read a bunch of comments, man, probably like hundreds of comments. And I saw one where it was just a lot of people going back and forth from many different point of views, and I just reached out to a few people and moved on from that. So,
Okay.
I
Okay.
mean, really, man, it's
Every-
like like I said, man, once you're confident, man, it's like clockwork.
Yeah, I definitely like need to acquiesce that level of confidence because one thing that I have, I guess, kind of I've always engaged with media as a kind of like spectator sport kind of thing. Like I'll always like I'll look at things, I'll never interact with them. Like I'm never the one to leave a comment or thing. Like I barely like things on Instagram. And so I guess like there's kind of like that mental wall where it's like, well, I mean, you probably just shouldn't DM people. But
Hmm.
that is definitely something that going forward I will probably try and look forward to. It's just kind of I think I just personally have like concerns about like having my identity out there, you know,
Right, right,
because like
right,
as I said, like there are crazies. Like there are some people who are just like main directive is I'm going to hurt people, and it's like,
right,
and so like,
right,
but of course, I guess as you said, there's you have to do your due diligence when you're looking out to find people who have not only interesting things to say, but stuff worthy of, if not debate, spreading via your podcast.
right, right.
And so, getting more into, I guess, the technical aspect of things.
Me?
Yep, yep,
All
I'm
right,
good.
all right. Another thing too is in-person interactions. You know what I mean? You may run into someone where small talk could turn into a great conversation.
Mhm.
And I've done this a lot. You mid conversation, you just like, man, yo, I think this is quality content that should have been recorded, but it was genuine. So another thing to it with the confidence is just being able to say like, yo, I appreciate your viewpoints on whatever it was we discussed.
Mhm.
How would you feel with, or have you ever thought of, just things like that, preventing or presenting that question, man? It's trust me, man, it's gonna be dope. It's gonna be fun once you get to that level, but it's really just being confident in your skin.
Right. And then I think I also tend to. I was about to segue before the disconnect happened, but one thing that I always like ponder on about is like the more technical aspect of things with stuff like equipment and whatnot, because of course, like when it comes to podcasting, it's a pretty low barrier to entry. All you need is like something that can record. Doesn't even have to record particularly well. Like
Right.
most, if not actually, yeah, all of my podcasts. No, there were some that were on mics, but that didn't turn out too well. Most of my podcasts thus so far were recorded on either an S8 microphone or an S10 microphone. Shout out to Team Samsung, we're the best. But moving forward to like uh, I guess kind of more advanced, like actual microphones, is definitely something that I've thought about in terms of
Mhm.
like where I want to take the podcast,
Right.
and like, and that's with everything really, right? Because whenever you want to invest in something that starts to come with actual like investment monetarily wise, and so I said that to ask you, how do you record your podcast? What is the usual like equipment that you bring, um, when you are recording?
I'm pretty much at the same stage. I have I use an iPhone, either XR speaker, iPhone 6 Plus speaker, iPad speaker, uh, iPhone headphone speaker. It's really just whatever room I'm in or whatever equipment I have available.
Definitely.
Um, but I'm definitely looking to expand. I'm looking to. I have a software on my computer, a beta software that I'm looking to purchase so that I can play with the levels and actually edit the audio so that it comes out more clear. And I like to play music in the beginning of my episodes, so I play music from a speaker, a Bluetooth speaker, onto the phone, and then turn the music down as I start to speak. Like it's really just using whatever's available right now. But definitely, I'm probably the same level as you are, man.
Okay. Okay. Yeah,
But
and
one thing I
definitely.
do, what we could talk about off air is I have some equipment. No, I don't have equipment personally, but I have a list of things that would be valuable because I was involved in a podcast with a few of my friends back home, and
Word.
they had like the whole MacBook, the audio interface with like the mic setups, the the mic filters, everything. We had everything. So I got a
No.
list of things that I'm looking to buy pretty soon so that everything can come together. And I'll send that list to you as well.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you. Right. And then also something that's come up that like I kind of tackled maybe a bit too early was branding. Shout out to Jackson Mead back at the North Carolina School of Science and Math. Not entirely sure where he is right now, but he was the one who did my branding and logos. The idea was mine, but I came to him and like discussed like, hey, this is something that I would like to do. And out of the kindness of his heart, he was like, "Yeah, I'll do this for free," which was great, especially for a high school student. Getting things done for free is epic. You have to say, would recommend, 10 out of 10. But
Right.
it definitely goes to show, I guess, one thing that I've learned in this pursuit of podcast proficiency is the importance of connections. Because like
Facts.
the only reason like I knew of Jackson's existence was literally just proximity. Like we were in the same dorm.
Mm.
um, and so it was quite fortunate in like kind of making the most out of what you have, especially at kind of like this beginner level, because like it's a bit of a seesaw, right? Because the more equipment you have, the less mobile you become, and so
Right.
you have to find like that very pretty middle ground, which is hard to conceptualize, especially right now. But at the same time, I am sitting in my room, so um yeah, and so looking at the best of both worlds, I saw that you had a very interesting graphical setup, and I really like the theming that you had with your podcasts while I
Mm.
was listening. And so, if you wanted to, like, I guess either plug your artist or like plug the creative design behind that, now would be the time to.
Right. So, wow, you put me on the spot, man. Um, I have to find the artist's Instagram page. They change their name pretty often, but it's my friend Sean from college. Sean is a sophomore at A&T as well, and we stayed in the same dorm. And she started to make hoodies. I found her because she had like this big issue with another college student, an upperclassman who has similar brands or whatever, and not similar brands, but similar designs.
Oh,
And you know, I'm not sure. I feel like it was really just that person, the upperclassmen. They were just, you know, just doing too much. Reaching too far for something that was unnecessary. The designs there were some similarities, but they weren't the same. It was clear to the eye. But whatever. I saw some of the work that she did. I would always run into her in the computer lab, and just one day I'm like, yo, you know, I'm looking to make what I have more official. As
mhm.
I had an image that I screenshotted off Google for a while. So I'm like, let me make this original, let me make this official, something that's, mine. I didn't originally want to put my face in it, and I don't know how we got there, but it ended up being my face, and then she ended up, doing what she did, and it came out great, and I appreciate her for that. So Sean, shout out to Sean. I will find your new Instagram name, and I'll share it. And
And
shout out to her.
of course, like if you want to pass her socials to me when I do upload this podcast and when Instagram video eventually gets pinned to my page, I'll make sure that she gets credit for being mentioned because one thing that I'm like a really big proponent of is crediting artists and making sure that like the people that create are known.
Right.
Um, because like growing up, I saw like a lot of kind of just like, and this comes from a lot of places like the fusion of meme culture and whatnot, and like otherwise just like articles or like people use an image and then just not credit the artist, which is cool and all if it was like taken from like a big company because I mean whatever. But like when it comes to like a small indie artist who is trying to get started, and then someone just which essentially just like snatches their work, and now don't have they don't have that reach that they could have had
Right.
posting images. Like it doesn't necessarily sit right with me. So I like to make I like to make a habit of when I do use art or when I do encounter art to making sure the art is accredited. In fact, if you wanted to, I'd be able to give you the socials of the art in the background right there, which is somewhat of ancillary matter, but it's still pretty good art, I have to say. Good enough to put in my room. Um, Other than that, what are some of, I guess, kind of the biggest lessons that you have surmised from recording podcasts?
Consistency, which is something that, it's been a thing for my entire life. Consistency is key. I listen to a lot of podcasts and they'll preach the same thing. And it's just from my own experiences and from those of who I listen to, man, just consistency. Uh, Try to put together a plan and execute that plan, man. Don't fall straight from that plan. Don't get lazy, procrastinate, whatever, man. Just be consistent and stick to it, man, and want it. Have fun. Don't just, it's not a job. It can you can get monetary gain from it, but even then, you still have to enjoy it. You know what I mean? And I feel like each episode it gets better and better. You get more comfortable. You know what questions to ask. I started off writing down questions, and now I go in and I know, I've already gone through a series of questions in my mind, and I go off of that, and I also go off of the answers that I receive. So, it's just consistency, man, because you'll grow a lot, you'll learn a lot, and the listeners will listen and respect you. Um, man, just consistency, man.
Okay, word. That's very, very useful advice, and I thank you for that. Um, do you have any like bad podcast stories? Like, have you ever had a podcast that just completely blew up in your face?
Yeah, a couple episodes, and I will not say the names, but a couple episodes, um, I had guests who, for some odd reason, it maybe that just may just be them, but it just the questions I asked, they would be answered, and then sometimes it wouldn't. It was just like some people can stay on topic, and some people can answer questions, and some people just like to talk. And for me, I didn't think about that ahead of time. I didn't think about, all right, if this person likes to talk, how can I, knowing how they are, kind of tailor my questions and tailor the direction of this podcast around what I can assume or what would be the way this podcast would go. And I struggled to do that in a couple episodes, and it was like, man, it was tough. Another one that was crazy was I had an episode with my uncle Kareem. Shout out to Kareem. We still got to do our episode. We scheduled a day to meet. We ended up meeting. Um, we recorded a podcast, man. We like 45 minutes in, and I checked my phone. I usually check my phone periodically to make
Oh
sure
no,
I'm still recording. And I don't know what happened. I think it was like the Wi-Fi connection was pretty bad in the library we were in. We were like in a basement or something. And like 45 minutes in, I check my phone. It's not recording. I go to see when it cut off. It cut off like 20 minutes in. So we
yeah,
start. So we start over. We start over. And the reason why I didn't keep checking it periodically is because the conversation was so good. Like so good. Like the first take was amazing, man. Probably one of my favorite episodes, man. Like I'll be honest, I got everything. Like he was answering questions so precise. It was easy to talk to him. This was early. This was before I was even comfortable. This was just like probably the one that made me feel more comfortable because it was just so easy to talk to him. And his story is just it was animated. It was enough to like really keep listeners intrigued. It was just perfect. So we tried again a second time, and it did the same thing. We went like 30 minutes in, it cut off like around 10 minutes. And we tried
oh,
it again, it cut off again. We tried four times
four times.
4 times before he was like, you know what, like I have to, what I mean? Like he had things to do later that day. We didn't expect to be there that long.
Right.
We ended up having to reschedule. Um, and we never really got a chance to, shout out to Kareem. Kareem, will reach out to you, man. I just did an episode for his podcast. We haven't done one for mine. It was just, ever since then, it's just been like, I haven't had an episode that I felt as confident about as that one.
Mhm.
And it was crazy. It just kept going out, in and out, in and out, in and out. Yeah, yeah, man.
quite unfortunate. I'll say I think one of the most interesting podcast episodes that I've ever had. This was very early when I was starting out. I believe it is either the third or the fourth episode.
Mm.
It was recorded with my friends Austin and Gerald. If you're listening to this, hey, thanks for sticking around. Um, and we started the podcast talking about SATs, right? Like the standardized testing and like its pitfalls and like how it in a way like does isn't very representative of a student as a whole. And I think it was probably like a coalescement. That's not a word. The coalescing of many different elements. Like I was pretty tired. I had just finished like a good marathon of physics homework, um, and like some other like cosmic things aligned. And I was tired. I was
I do
simply
not
tired.
miss physics.
And so for one of the first and like only times in the Quixotic topic history, I didn't manage the river of the conversation. I just let it flow. Um, I just let it like I just let it go. Like I very hands off. I wasn't the moderator as much as I was participant, and we went from standardized testing to child labor.
Mm.
I do not know how.
Mm. Yeah.
I do not know why. But one thing that definitely taught me is that while podcasts that aren't necessarily controlled are quite entertaining, I have to say that was probably one of the most fun podcasts I had.
Yeah.
Um,
Ooh.
it's definitely a bit it's a bit anxious, right? It's there's a bit of anxiety that comes with not being in control of the conversation, especially when it is your podcast. Like I think I think to a point, especially with how like both our podcasts are orientated in such that we are we are kind of like the hosts and we support a guest when or guests multiple when it comes to being the host, like not being in control isn't necessarily the best thing.
Mm.
Um, and so that was a very eye opening experience. And other than that, I definitely paid a bit more attention to manage the conversations.
Right.
Um, but one thing I do definitely want to do is to be able to manage conversations and still get to kind of like that point of levity that I had with that one primordial chaos podcast.
Yeah.
Um, nothing against us and Joe. They're great people, and it might just have been that we were all tired. But I do definitely think that kind of finding a balance between that chaos and control is
Right.
something is another thing that I'm working on as I continue to record these podcast episodes. And I definitely felt you when you were talking about scripting as well. In fact, one of longtime supporters of the podcast, Cleavon, shout out to Cleavon. Um, he sat me down after like sitting in with one of the podcasts, and he was like, Daquan, I want to see you succeed. And you know when people start off like that, you already know
Yeah.
they're about to criticize you, like
Right. Right. Right.
and so they're like, he was like, I think you do a lot better if you started scripting your podcast. And I was like, you know what, Cleveland, I'll take that. And so I started doing what you do. Like I started like writing down questions, and then like I looked them over, and I was like start internalizing them. And so that way, whenever the stream of the conversation starts to hit a rut, I'll just be able to pick up with a supporting question, which has definitely I think since then bolstered my podcasting technique.
Yeah. Yeah, man, I could definitely agree with that. And to jump back a little bit, I meant to one thing I forgot and that kind of crossed my mind is the podcast I was involved with before mine. One that I had with a group of friends called For the Future. Um, we did a 48-hour podcast, and that was one of the most interesting experiences I probably ever had in my life. Where we had shifts, literally had shifts where people came in and like took over mics and then other people went to sleep and will wake up and get back on the mics like we did. We talked about everything. Man, listen, that was fun. But to get back to what we were just talking about,
Wait, hold
um,
on. Sorry, I'm having a hard time like getting my mind. 48 hours?
48 hours. So what happened was, my friend Jordan. Jordan is the one who created the podcast and put everything together and brought us all together. one day he was like, "Yo, man, I want to be in the record books. I want to uh, beat the record for longest podcast." And at first we was like, "Yeah, like let's do it." And then we started to think about the logistics, and we're like, you know what? We may not be able to do that just because it was only the three of us. It's me, Jordan, and Ben. Jordan, shout out to Jordan, man. Jordan Campbell, shout out to Ben Babcock, my bad. It was just the three of us, and we were like, yo, bro, we can't, there's no way we can do it. And then we looked at the rules and what was allowed, what wasn't. And we ended up reaching out to a bunch of friends from school. They all came and we got it done. And when I tell you, that was fun.
So are
That
you guys
was fun.
looking for the record books?
Um, I don't think it counted. I think there was something that happened that disqualified us or something. But it definitely is 48. I think it might be a little longer than 48 hours, but it's up there. I can send you the link after this,
I
but it's
will
up there.
definitely. I'm actually like quite interested in that. It's going to take me a while to get through it, of course.
Yeah,
That'll
man,
probably be also something that I
it's
add in the YouTube release.
a bunch of stuff going on, man, and we got it recorded too. So we have the audio and the video, and you can see like people are like tired. Like you can see people falling over at the mic. Like it's crazy. But yeah, to get back on topic, one thing that I do going into episodes, what I started to do after like transitioning from writing down questions to just going off top was I would read the purpose of my podcast, because sometimes the longer you're doing it, the more you start to kind of forget the why. You see what I'm saying? And forget, because for me, I like talking. You know what I mean? I like talking. I like listening to other people talking. The conversation can go whichever way it wants to go. But I have to remember that there's a purpose for my podcast isn't just, I say it's free flowing, this free flowing, but at the end of the day, there's a purpose. You see what I'm saying? So what I started to do is I set a specific thing, like a general theme for each episode. So when I speak to a specific person, there's something that we have to address, whether that be by one question or by all of the questions. We have to talk about this subject, whatever subject they may be. So I'm going to do whatever I can, whatever questions I ask, whatever we talk about, bring it all together so that it fits whatever that purpose of that episode is, and so that it goes with the purpose of my podcast. So I read over the purpose of my podcast to remind myself, okay, this is what I'm doing this for. And here's who is the intended audience. Here are the people who I want to influence, and here are the people I want to connect to. And then I go, all right, well, here's my guest. What do they have to offer, and what do I want to bring out of them? Most of the time, I already know that, because the people I wonder, if I don't know them, there's a reason why I contacted them. There was a conversation or a point of view that they had that was valuable, and I knew that they had the proper information. So we're going to cater to that. You see what I'm saying? Like, I just had an episode with a good friend of mine, Robert. Robert, tuning in. Shout out to you, man. I see you. Um, I'm not going to talk about a bunch of miscellaneous topics. Yeah, it may be good. Yeah, we could chop it up. That's a good friend of mine. We could talk about whatever. But I know it means a lot to Robert. You see what I'm saying? I know what we can connect that would eventually lead to the purpose of the podcast, would have helped the listeners, would have progressed listeners. It's
Okay.
yeah, you pretty much get what I'm saying.
Definitely. And so like it's really important to have that vision, just like that laser focus, especially like to be like in the moment, at least for the duration of the podcast, like just be present like in that and to get every ounce of what you can out of the subject out so that it can be put for your listeners to
Right.
use and listen to. Yeah, I definitely resonate with that. I think that that is very important. We are coming a bit close to the end of the podcast, and so before we conclude, I do want to say again, thank you for your time joining me. And I wanted to know if I could be on your podcast potentially. I'm not entirely sure what we would talk about. I mean, of course, this podcast is pretty meta, to be completely honest. But I would definitely be intrigued in kind of participating on the other side of things instead of having
Right.
to officiate and organize and like edit and like be on the other side of the boot. I'm not sure how that saying goes, but
Yeah.
I feel like you understand what I mean.
Yeah. Yeah. I get it. Yeah, man. Listen, man. I'm always open. You know what I mean? I'm always available. And you know what I mean? We just it's I didn't know this, but we're family, bro. So just you know what I mean, whenever you want to reach out, man, go ahead and I'll reach out to you as well. We can get it done ASAP. Uh
Yeah,
I'm open, I'm willing, we could discuss what you want to talk about and we'll go through the logistics off air. But yeah, man, definitely, man, you're always welcome. Everyone is welcome, you know what I mean? I'm not biased and there's no, you know what I mean, limits. There's no, everyone has a story, everyone has something that's valuable. So if you're willing to share that, I'm open and allow you to do that. So I'm with
yeah.
it.
Thank you. And with that golden philosophy, I believe that is going to be all for today. Thank you all for joining today's episode of the Quixotic topic. Um, that is all, and I hope you have a good day.